A chilling overview of the child's reputation as a dangerous criminal. In the world of crime, there are names that strike fear into the hearts of people: ruthless gangsters, cold-blooded assassins, and unhinged serial killers. But what if one of the most feared criminals in history wasn't a grown man but a child? A boy so devoid of remorse, so consumed by violence, that even seasoned criminals hesitated to cross his path. This is the story of the world's most dangerous child criminal, a boy who became a murderer at an age when others were still playing with toys. His name became legend in the underworld, whispered in fear among those who knew of his deeds. Unlike typical young offenders who started with petty theft or vandalism, his journey into darkness was swift and merciless. His first known crime wasn't stealing candy or breaking into a house, it was cold-blooded murder. By the time he was just a teenager, he had already built a reputation that rivaled that of adult criminals. Authorities, psychologists, and criminologists struggled to comprehend how someone so young could possess such an unrelenting thirst for violence. Was it his upbringing? Was he a victim of circumstance, raised in an environment of brutality that turned him into a monster? Or was he simply born different, an anomaly of human nature, someone destined for darkness from the very beginning? The details of his crimes were horrifying. Victims often had no warning before he struck, and those who survived described him as emotionless, a predator who seemed to take pleasure in causing pain. Even more terrifying was his ability to manipulate those around him, recruiting others to do his bidding, despite his young age. He wasn't just a killer, he was a leader of fear. Despite numerous arrests, the legal system was unequipped to handle a criminal like him. Juvenile detention centers couldn't contain him, and traditional punishments meant nothing. Each time he was caught, he returned to the streets more dangerous than before. The police, the media, and the public were left asking the same question. How does a child become one of the world's most feared murderers? This is his story, the rise of a boy who defied every expectation, shattered every rule, and became a nightmare that even hardened criminals feared to face the childhood abuse, neglect, and trauma that shaped his violent nature. Every monster has an origin story. No one is born a killer, but some are forged in fire, shaped by pain, and molded by the darkness around them. The boy who would become one of the world's most feared criminals did not have the innocence of childhood. Instead, his early years were filled with violence, abandonment, and suffering that hardened him before he even had a chance to understand right from wrong. Born into a world of chaos, his home was not a place of warmth and love. It was a battlefield. His parents were absent, or worse, they were the first to teach him cruelty. A father who beat him for the slightest mistake. A mother who neglected him, or maybe no parents at all. Just a revolving door of abusers who saw him as nothing more than a burden. Some say he was raised in the streets, left to fend for himself among criminals, drug dealers, and gangsters who had no mercy for a weak child. Others claim he was born into a household where violence was a way of life, where bloodshed was as normal as breakfast. From a young age, he learned that trust was dangerous and love was a weakness. Hunger became his first enemy, forcing him to steal just to survive. Every day was a struggle, and soon the only lesson he truly understood was that the strong take what they want, and the weak suffer. Beatings and abuse weren't just things that happened to him. They became the tools he used to navigate the world. Perhaps the most chilling part of his story was the moment he stopped feeling pain. The first time he watched someone else cry out in suffering and felt nothing. No empathy, no remorse. Just an understanding that this was how the world worked. By the time he was old enough to speak fluently, he had already seen more death and violence than most adults. Somewhere along the way, something inside him snapped. The scared, helpless boy was gone. In his place stood something far more dangerous. A child who had learned to love the power that fear gave him. A boy who no longer wanted to be a victim. A boy who was ready to become a predator. And soon the world would know just how dangerous he truly was. First crimes, petty market stalls, pickpocketed unsuspecting pedestrians, and broke into homes looking for anything valuable. But unlike other children who stole out of desperation, there was something different about him. He didn't steal because he had to. He stole because he wanted to. The thrill of taking something that wasn't his gave him a rush, a feeling of power in a world that had once made him feel powerless. Then came the fires. At first they were small, trash cans, abandoned buildings, the occasional car. He would watch as the flames consumed everything, fascinated by the destruction. Fire gave him a sense of control, the ability to destroy something with just a flick of a match. Neighbors and authorities dismissed it as childish mischief, unaware that it was only the beginning. But the most disturbing sign was his cruelty to animals. Stray dogs and cats became his victims. He started by chasing them, throwing stones, and setting traps. But soon, his actions escalated. He hurt them, not out of anger, but out of curiosity. He wanted to see how much pain he could cause before they stopped moving. Those who knew him as a child whispered about the strange, cold look in his eyes when he tortured an animal. There was no guilt, no hesitation, just an eerie fascination with suffering. Some people saw what he was becoming. A few teachers, neighbors, or distant relatives noticed his cold, emotionless stare, his violent outbursts, and his complete lack of empathy. But by then, it was already too late. He had tasted power, and he liked it. The petty crimes, the fires, and the animal cruelty were just practice. He was preparing for something bigger, something final. And soon he would commit his first real crime, the one that would change everything. The first time he would take a human life. The first murder, what led him to take a life for the first time. Every killer has a turning point, the moment they cross the line between violence and murder. For him, that moment came far too soon. He had already stolen, destroyed, and inflicted pain without remorse. But taking a human life, that was different. That was irreversible. The circumstances of his first kill remain a mystery to many. Some say it was an accident, that he didn't mean to kill, only to hurt. Others claim it was planned, that he had been fantasizing about it for a long time, waiting for the right opportunity. But one thing is certain. When the moment came, he did not hesitate. Some say the victim was another child, a bully who had tormented him for years, pushing him too far. Others believe it was a random stranger, someone unfortunate enough to cross his path at the wrong time. There are even whispers that his first victim was someone he trusted, a foster parent, a gang member, or even a relative who had abused him. What is known is how he did it. The method was brutal, showing no sign of fear or hesitation. A knife to the throat, a rock to the skull, a strangulation that lasted far longer than necessary. Whatever he chose, it was done with a cold, calculated precision far beyond his years. There was no panic, no regret. When he saw the life drain from his victim's eyes, he felt something new. Power. Some killers feel guilt after their first murder. He did not. Instead, he felt a rush, a sense of control he had never known before. The weak had always suffered at the hands of the strong, and for the first time, he was the strong one. What happened next would define the rest of his life. He didn't turn himself in. He didn't break down in tears. Instead, he walked away, calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. If anyone suspected him, they quickly learned to keep their mouths shut. This was just the beginning. The boy who had once been a victim had now become a predator, and he was just getting started. Rise of a criminal mastermind, how he became a feared figure in the underworld. After his first kill, something inside him changed forever. There was no turning back. Murder had given him a taste of power, and now he craved more. But he wasn't reckless. Unlike other violent criminals who acted on impulse, he was calculated, methodical, and strategic. He understood one thing better than anyone. Fear was the greatest weapon of all. At a young age, he had already gained a reputation in the streets. Other kids feared him, criminals twice his age respected him, and even the police knew his name. He wasn't just another delinquent. He was different, smarter, more ruthless, and completely devoid of empathy.